Всім добрий вечір.
On behalf of the brave, on behalf of every father and every mother, wings for freedom. On behalf of our warriors, and paves the way for a new history.
Hello and welcome to Tochnyi Weekly, the show that gets behind the headlines to discuss the Russian invasion of Ukraine. We have an excellent show for you this week. Boy, do we. First, if you could, please hit the like button and subscribe to Tochnyi. It really helps us out. Also, you can check us out on Twitter and Blue Sky. And of course, we have our website, Tochnyi.info. That's where a lot of the research that we do is all compiled. So if you ever want more background information on what we do, definitely go to Tochnyi.info. We also had two extra events this week. We released two videos. The first was our analyst Stanimir's analysis of the current Russian car market. So if Russian economy stuff interests you, I highly recommend you check that out. And also there was a compilation of every drone interception, I think, or a lot of them, over 1,500 of them. I think it amounts to about 9 hours of footage. So both of those videos were released by Tochnyi, so you can check them out if they interest you. And then, of course, we have a very special broadcast for you this week. We have two very special guests from the Ukrainian charity Come Back Alive, and Erlend and Artem are going to do an excellent interview with them. But first, we're going to cover all the main news for this week, so I'm going to go ahead and jump right into that. These are the main headlines as of May 4th, 2025. First up, we have operations. Ukraine's maritime drone program scored a major milestone when a sea-based drone successfully neutralized a Russian Su-30 fighter jet near the port city of Novorossiysk in Russia's Krasnodar region. This is the first known instance of a surface drone bringing down a manned combat aircraft. Reports indicate the aircraft was struck mid-flight, igniting before ultimately descending into the Black Sea. The Russian Su-30 is a high-value multi-role fighter designed for both offensive and defensive missions, equipped with a wide range of armaments such as guided missiles, rockets, and bombs. It has been used extensively in operations targeting both Ukrainian defense positions and civilian infrastructure. This operation took place on May 2, 2025, and was executed by Ukraine's Elite Group 13 unit, working closely with the security services and national defense forces. Ukrainian military intelligence confirmed that the strike was carried out using a missile launched from a Magara-5 unmanned surface vessel. The Magara-5 is Ukraine's domestically developed combat watercraft tailored for naval reconnaissance and engagement. It has a nearly 500-mile range and is engineered to deliver explosive payloads exceeding 700 pounds. This is the second major success of the Magara platform. On December 31, 2024, another drone reportedly downed two Russian Mi-8 helicopters, another first in modern warfare. Ukrainian Defense Forces conducted another successful drone operation, targeting the Tochnyi L microelectronics plant located in Bryansk. According to the Russian outlet SHOT, local observers reported between 10 and 15 separate detonations in the vicinity of the facility, which is a key supplier of electronic components for Russia's military programs. Tochnyi L is one of the most important facilities in Russia's defense supply chain, producing critical microelectronic components used in missile systems like the S-300 and S-400, as well as various types of drones. It has been heavily funded by the Russian government to support its advanced military technologies. Surveillance footage provided by civilians in the area allowed for confirmation of the event's location using geolocation data to identify the site of the resulting blaze. This is not the first time the facility has been struck. There are at least 4 known attacks that have occurred on the plant. Tochnyi L is located approximately 110 kilometers from Ukraine's border, putting it well within the reach of long-range unmanned operations. It holds the distinction of being Russia's second largest microelectronics manufacturer, with roughly 90% of its output allocated to the country's defense ministry. In the early hours of April 30th, Ukrainian drones targeted the Murom instrument-making plant in Russia's Vladimir Oblast, leading to damage at 2 buildings and igniting a fire. The facility reportedly plays a key role in producing ignition mechanisms for ammunition supplied to Russian military and security institutions, including the Armed Forces, the Interior Ministry, and the FSB. The plant is currently under sanctions imposed by both Ukraine and the European Union due to its contributions to Russia's military operations.
Ukrainian sources reported 5 explosions occurred at the site, with the resulting damage and fire affecting multiple structures. In addition to ammunition-related products, the facility also manufactures equipment used by the Russian Navy and Air Force. Local residents corroborated the strike in statements to the Russian outlet Astra, confirming that the Murom plant had indeed been impacted. Vladimir Oblast is approximately 190 kilometers east of Moscow and is home to several high-priority military sites. Just over a week earlier, on April 22nd, another explosion was reported at the 51st Arsenal of the Main Missile and Artillery Directorate, one of Russia's largest munition stockpiles, which also resulted in a significant fire. Ukrainian authorities reported on Friday that a Russian military facility involved in gathering satellite and electronic intelligence was targeted by unmanned aerial systems. This particular installation, located in the village of Moskovskoye within Russia's Stavropol region, plays a critical role in intercepting signals from foreign satellites and analyzing communications data. Although the regional governor acknowledged that debris from drones landed in the area, he stated that there was no significant structural damage. However, Ukraine's National Security Defense Council stated that the drones successfully arrived at their intended targets. According to Ukraine, the facility in question is not merely a technical outpost, but rather a component of a strategic framework used by Russian intelligence called Zvezda, which is used to track battlefield developments and support operations designed to manipulate perception and morale. Open-source intelligence from the Space Review publication indicates that this particular Zvezda station is one of at least 4 such facilities Ukraine has targeted since the beginning of the full-scale invasion. This same location was previously struck on July 4, 2024, suggesting that it remains a high-value priority for Ukrainian planners aiming to impair Russia's capacity for electronic warfare and intelligence coordination. On April 27, 2025, a sabotage operation was carried out by members of the Ukrainian partisan group Artem, which targeted a key piece of railway infrastructure in the Russian-occupied area of Luhansk Oblast. The group reported that its agents dismantled a signal relay box near the town of Stansia Luhanska. I'm going to assume that's a mistranslation because Stansia means like station, so Luhansk station, but I don't know. Maybe there's a town called that. A location known for its strategic railway connections supporting Russian military logistics. The targeted line links occupied Luhansk to Russia and plays a vital role in moving supplies, heavy equipment, and personnel involved in sustaining military activity against Ukraine. Artem posted a public statement on their Telegram channel detailing the operation and noted that the attack disrupted shipments of critical equipment and parts intended for frontline use. They described this act as a deliberate step in weakening the flow of resources sustaining the occupation. On the morning of April 28th, Ukraine's Air Force confirmed the loss of an Su-27 fighter jet during efforts to intercept an incoming drone assault and support Ukrainian ground operations in the area. According to military officials, the pilot ejected safely and is currently undergoing medical evaluation. The precise circumstances leading to the loss of the aircraft are currently being investigated. The Su-27, referred to by its NATO name as Flanker, is a legacy Soviet-designed fighter jet known for its agility and air superiority capabilities. It remains in service with both Ukrainian and Russian forces. Up next, we have economy and aid. The Czech initiative to supply Ukraine with artillery ammunition by Europe has received around 400,000 rounds of large-caliber ammunition as of the end of April, according to the Czech defense minister. The Czech official dismissed concerns that the ammunition might undermine peace prospects in Ukraine, and she also denied claims of U.S. opposition to the program, stating that the U.S. Defense Secretary has expressed support and urged other members of the Ukraine Defense Contact Group to join the initiative. These 400,000 shells are part of the broader initiative in which last year approximately 1.5 million artillery rounds of various calibers were sourced from third countries and delivered to Ukraine with the support of allied nations. And we have some slightly encouraging U.S. news. On May 1st, it was reported that the U.S. Air Force had sent decommissioned F-16 fighter jets to Ukraine, not for combat use, but as a source of spare parts for operational aircraft donated by European allies. A spokesperson for the Air Force confirmed that these airframes, which are no longer flight-worthy and lack essential systems such as engines and radar, were provided specifically to help maintain and repair Ukraine's growing fleet of active F-16s. These retired jets were shipped out on April 26th aboard an AN-124 transport aircraft, which departed from Tucson International Airport in Arizona and landed in Poland at an airport I'm afraid to pronounce, which is a major transit point for military aid bound for Ukraine. Also, the U.S. Department of State has given the green light for a proposed $310 million package aimed at supporting Ukraine's use of F-16 fighter jets, specifically focusing on training and technical infrastructure. This approval, announced by the U.S. Defense Security Cooperation Agency, would provide Ukraine with extensive support to maintain and operate its growing fleet of F-16s. The contract involves U.S. defense contractors, including Lockheed Martin Aeronautics, BAE Systems, and AAR, all of which contribute different components of the package. The assistance is designed not only to upgrade and modify the aircraft themselves, but also build out Ukraine's capacity for long-term sustainment and independent operations. Included in the package are services and equipment related to aircraft modernization, personnel training for operational and maintenance roles, spare parts and consumables, software support for classified and unclassified systems, as well as technical assessments, ground handling tools, and logistical engineering support from contractors and the U.S. government. The goal of the deal is to ensure Ukrainian pilots receive comprehensive training to safely and effectively operate their jets. It also seeks to enhance coordination and interoperability between Ukrainian and U.S. forces, laying the foundation for a more integrated operational framework moving forward. In addition, U.S. officials have completed the drafting of a new sanctions package aimed at intensifying economic pressure on Russia in response to the ongoing war in Ukraine. One U.S. official stated that Gazprom, Russia's state-controlled energy giant, is a central target of the new package. In addition, other major enterprises in the extractive industries and banking sectors are expected to be affected. The aim is to tighten restrictions on revenue streams that support Moscow's military operations. However, whether these sanctions will be enacted remains uncertain. President Donald Trump, who has shown increasing dissatisfaction with Russian President Vladimir Putin's failure to respond to his ceasefire proposals, has yet to sign off on the plan. Internal discussions are ongoing within the U.S. National Security Council to finalize a list of punitive actions that are acceptable to the administration. And the last piece of U.S. news this week, Ukraine's joint investment fund with the United States formed under a new minerals cooperation agreement and is expected to become operational within a few months of approval by the Verkhovna Rada, according to the economy minister. Speaking in Washington on April 1st, she emphasized the urgency of launching the initiative, but noted that the precise timing remains uncertain. The agreement, officially signed on April 30th, sets the stage for long-term economic collaboration between Kyiv and Washington by establishing a limited partnership to invest in Ukraine's critical minerals and energy sectors. The fund will function as a joint venture between the U.S. International Development Finance Corporation and Ukraine's Agency for Supporting Public-Private Partnership. A key point clarified in the finalized text is that previously granted U.S. military assistance is not connected to the revenues or operations of the new fund. This clarification resolved earlier tensions in negotiations, particularly concerns over potential U.S. claims on Ukrainian state energy revenues, an issue that reportedly led to a contentious exchange between President Zelensky and President Trump in February. Financing for the venture will come from new mineral, oil, and gas licenses issued after the fund is established. According to Svirdenko, half of the revenues generated from these new licenses will be directed into the joint fund. The agreement outlines 57 specific mineral resources covered under the program, including uranium, lithium, rare earth elements, platinum, gold, oil, and natural gas. Any additions to the list must be mutually agreed upon by both parties. The final version of the agreement addresses concerns raised by leaked early drafts, which had prompted political backlash over fears that the legacy state-owned Ukrainian assets could fall under foreign control. Those provisions were removed to ensure the focus remains solely on new development initiatives. One key part of the agreement is that future U.S. aid that is donated will be considered an investment in the joint fund. The European Commission has announced that it does not plan to extend the autonomous trade measures currently allowing Ukraine broad, barrier-free access to the EU market. These measures, which were enacted shortly after the full-scale invasion, effectively created a fast-tracked trade visa-free arrangement for Ukrainian goods and is set to expire on June 5th. However, EU officials emphasized that this will not result to a return to trade restrictions. Speaking at a briefing in Brussels, the Commission spokesperson clarified that the transition will be carefully managed. Rather than renewing the ATMs, all the provisions for liberalized trade will be permanently incorporated into a framework of the existing EU-Ukraine Deep and Comprehensive Free Trade Area. This move aims to ensure continued access for Ukrainian exports without disruption. Gill stressed that the expiration of the current system will be coordinated with the formal integration of trade terms into the DCFTA, avoiding any uncertainty of rollback in market access. He assured that there will be no abrupt changes or need of re-implementation of old trade barriers. While he did not specify an exact timeline, he indicated that the transition will happen soon and through a clearly structured process. Ukraine has formally approved an agreement with Japan that will allow it to access approximately $3 billion of frozen Russian assets, Prime Minister Denis Shmyhal announced via Telegram. The funding is part of a broader European and G7-backed Extraordinary Revenue Acceleration Initiative designed to channel funds derived from immobilized Russian resources towards Ukraine's recovery and development. Shmyhal stated that the funds will be directed toward critical budget needs, infrastructure reconstruction, and broader economic development. He emphasized that this is part of a larger financial strategy through which Ukraine intends to raise up to $50 billion using similar mechanisms tied to frozen Russian assets. The Prime Minister expressed appreciation for the support from G7 countries and the European Union, which helped create a financial framework enabling the redirection of the resources. He also reiterated Ukraine's long-term position that all seized Russian assets should ultimately be redirected to help rebuild what has been damaged during the war. A court in Kyiv has ordered the pretrial detention of the general director and deputy director of a defense manufacturing plant in Dnipropetrovsk Oblast over allegations of delivering 120,000 faulty mortar rounds to Ukrainian forces. The court ruling bars the suspects from posting bail and will remain in effect until June 27. The plant, which had signed a contract in early 2024 with Ukraine's Defense Procurement Agency to produce mortar ammunition for ground forces, is now at the center of a criminal investigation. According to investigators, the mortar rounds were produced with inferior materials, including substandard propellant charges that failed to meet required military specifications. The alleged scheme involved intentionally cutting production costs to increase profit margins on the government contract. Officials tasked with inspecting the ammunition reportedly turned a blind eye to the quality violations and submitted falsified documentation, allowing the defective munitions to be delivered to frontline units. Ukrainian officials stated that they are undertaking significant reforms to the procurement system that should prevent such abuses in the future. Euroclear, a major European financial institution responsible for security settlement, is preparing to distribute €3 billion in frozen Russian assets to Western investors whose holdings were confiscated by the Russian government in 2023. These funds are part of a broader $10 billion in Russian assets that were immobilized as part of EU sanctions following Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022. The move follows a revision of the EU sanctions framework in 2024, which now prohibits the redirection of frozen Russian funds to compensate foreign investors affected by retaliatory measures from Moscow. The initiative is a significant shift in how the EU is handling sanctioned Russian capital. Until now, the prevailing strategy has been to allocate profits generated by frozen Russian assets towards financing aid for Ukraine. However, this new step directly targets Russia's counter-sanctions, which included the expropriation of billions in Western-owned securities and cash. Euroclear is headquartered in Belgium and holds over €180 billion in sanctioned Russian funds, primarily state and central bank reserves, and has come under increasing legal and political pressure. Reuters notes that about 100 legal claims have been filed by investors seeking compensation for losses sustained from Russian asset seizures. The €3 billion to be distributed appears to directly correspond with the amount that Russia recently appropriated from Euroclear accounts inside its jurisdiction. The European Commission and relevant regulatory bodies have reportedly authorized Euroclear to proceed, assessing individual claims and overseeing the compensation process. This move is seen as both a practical and political response to Russia's retaliatory measures and is intended to protect financial interests of European and U.S. entities affected by Russian asset grabs. Russia's economy showed significant signs of strain in the first quarter of 2025, with industrial growth slowing dramatically and key sectors contracting. Overall industrial output grew by just 1.1%, down sharply from the 5.7% in the previous quarter, while wholesale trade declined by 2.1%, marking the first quarterly contraction in that sector since the winter of 2023. The most pronounced declines were seen in mineral extraction, where the contraction deepened from 0.9% to 3.7%, and in the non-resource industrial sector, where growth slowed from 10% to 4.7% over the same period. These figures indicate a broad weakening across both extractive industries and manufacturing. The quarterly performance was described by analysts as Russia's weakest since early 2023. The downturns are attributed to a combination of restrictive monetary policies by the central bank, persistent Western sanctions, supply chain bottlenecks, and elevated inflation, all of which are suppressing economic activity. A report from the Center for Macroeconomic Analysis and Short-Term Forecasting, a Moscow-based think tank with government ties, concluded that civilian manufacturing has already entered a recession. Their data shows a seasonally adjusted monthly decline of 0.8% in civilian goods output during quarter one, including a 1.1% drop in March alone. The decline is affecting a wide range of non-military industries. Civil mechanical engineering, electrical equipment, construction materials, and metals production all experienced reduced output. The food industry in particular saw its steepest decline since the start of the war, shrinking by 0.7% per month during the quarter. Due to increasing economic pressures, Russian authorities intend to raise prices on utilities such as gas and electricity, which could further strain household finances and weigh on domestic demand. All this data signals growing fragility on the civilian side of Russia's wartime economy, which has become increasingly dependent on the military-industrial output to offset broader stagnation. Machines manufactured by South Korea's DN Solutions have been discovered at Russian defense production sites responsible for assembling Lancet drones and Iskander missile systems, according to the Korea Times. The report indicates that over $19 million worth of DN Solutions equipment reached Russia via Chinese intermediaries, with one key distributor identified as Silver Technology. Documentation reviewed by Ukrainian analysts includes customs and procurement records showing that these shipments involve new machinery delivered under contracts signed in 2023 and 2024, well after the full-scale invasion of Ukraine. DN Solutions has publicly denied any direct involvement in supplying Russia since the war began. The company stated that it fully complies with South Korean export regulations, which prohibit unauthorized transfers of strategic goods. It also claims to have immediately cut ties with the Chinese firms found to be facilitating re-export to Russia. And finally, this week, we have international relations. On Monday, Russian President Vladimir Putin publicly thanked North Korean leader Kim Jong-un for deploying military personnel to assist Russian forces in regaining control over territory in the Kursk region. The Kremlin quoted Putin as expressing gratitude for what he described as a demonstration of solidarity and loyalty from North Korea, singling out Kim personally for his role. According to a report by North Korea's state-run news agency, the country's Central Military Commission stated that its forces took part in efforts to reclaim areas in the Kursk region. Kim Jong-un framed the deployment as part of the mutual defense obligations between Pyongyang and Moscow, referring to the participating troops as national heroes and symbols of North Korea's honor. He also acknowledged the losses suffered, referencing the fallen by noting the tombstones for the dead, and announced plans to construct a monument in Pyongyang to commemorate their actions. Kim further ordered the implementation of national policies to honor the families of those who fought, indicating a domestic campaign to elevate soldiers' social status. The announcement prompted sharp criticism, and no action, from South Korea's defense ministry, which accused Pyongyang of openly violating United Nations Security Council resolutions prohibiting the deployment of its military forces abroad. The ministry called the move a self-admission of international wrongdoing and warned of the legal and diplomatic consequences that could follow. And finally this week, in a bit of confusing news, the U.S. State Department has signaled a notable adjustment in its approach to peace negotiations between Russia and Ukraine, indicating that Washington will no longer serve as a constant intermediary in the process. Officials stressed that while the United States remains committed to supporting diplomatic efforts, it will no longer engage in extensive shuttle diplomacy to facilitate meetings unless there is meaningful movement from both sides. In an interview, Rubio acknowledged that the final settlement remains elusive, given that both sides maintain fundamentally incompatible objectives. He also noted that U.S. leadership is considering how much further attention and resources to allocate to the invasion, especially in light of competing global priorities such as the escalating strategic rivalry with China. State Department spokesperson Tammy Bruce explained that the current posture reflects a strategic shift rather than a withdrawal. She emphasized that the U.S. is modifying how it engages in peace efforts, focusing on encouraging both parties to propose substantive solutions rather than relying on American mediation as default. U.S. support, according to Bruce, will continue, but expectations have shifted. Ukraine and Russia must take greater responsibility for advancing negotiations themselves. Following public reactions and speculation about a possible American disengagement, the State Department clarified this. In a follow-up statement, Bruce dismissed claims that the U.S. had stepped back entirely and reiterated that any change in mediation efforts would ultimately be a presidential decision. The U.S., she said, continues to press both Moscow and Kyiv to demonstrate real progress towards resolution, and future involvement will depend on the momentum of those efforts. And that wraps it up for the main headlines this week. We will now move to the next segment.
So, welcome, Taras and Kate. We are very, very happy and pleased to have you guys on.
Good evening, everyone.
Hi, everyone. Good to be here.
So, Taras Tymochko, sorry if I pronounce your name incorrectly, but I try.
Perfect. That's
okay,
perfect.
You're a former serviceman and advisor at Comeback Alive, especially focused on the Dronefall project. Kate Leschyshyn, you are the head of international partnerships at Comeback Alive. I'm very lucky that I met you first time in Oslo and also recently in Kyiv. So nice to talk to you again. Can you please present yourself a little bit more? Because, this is a very formal presentation, but talk shortly about what you're doing at Comeback Alive, Kate, and then Taras.
Yeah, sure. Likewise, Erlend, thanks for having us here. And indeed, it was very nice to meet you, both in Oslo and in Ukraine. And I believe we'll meet again and again. When we were preparing for this podcast, Erlend, Taras, and we were distributing the roles. And Erlend is obviously the host here and moderates everything. Taras will speak a lot about Dronefall, which is one of the game changers in this war. And then my role was to present the Comeback Alive in general, and that's the easiest role, right?
Yeah, but I
Then,
mean, what's your tasks at Comeback Alive, Kate? And when did you join the foundation?
my task is to present the organizations to those people who already know a lot about us. So each time I have to find something interesting that they didn't hear about maybe, and they want to learn about the organization. But the ultimate goal, is to work with our international partners and donors who want to contribute either financially or who want to support us the other ways by providing materials, media coverage, joint projects whatsoever. I work in all the countries, but my focus is Norway right now. That's what we do.
Cool. And Taras, thank you so much for coming. How long have you been at the foundation, and how did you end up there?
Hi again, everyone. I've joined the foundation around a year and a half ago. Before that, I was serving in the military as military communication unit. I'm a sergeant of Ukrainian armed forces. What I'm doing at Comeback Alive, basically, I'm trying to connect people from the military and people from the foundation for productive collaborations or projects. I'm trying to help them find the way where everyone can be useful to each other. From Comeback Alive, we can provide some aid, material or intellectual, or some advising, and military guys can help us as well, as Comeback Alive is the organization that needs lots of donations to function, and military plays a great role in this, as they can support us through their social media, or they can just thank us for providing any kind of help. This would help us to collect more donations for further projects or future ideas to be implemented.
Cool. Okay, so yeah, I guess most of our listeners and viewers know what Comeback Alive is, and I know the organization have very long history, and that you also have a special status because you're allowed to actually buy weapons for the military. But yeah, Kate, I'm excited to listen to some of your special insights about what Comeback Alive is doing. Not just about the Dronefall project, but in general. I'm very interested. So I'll go ahead and share
Yeah, sure.
the presentation that you've brought, some slides. For the people that just listen, we will you can see this on our YouTube channel. But I guess Kate is going to be very good at presenting this. So there are some slides up.
Thanks, Erlend. Thanks for turning it on. Indeed, we have some slides, not too many, not to overload anyone on Sunday evening, and especially those people who will just listen to the podcast. Comeback Alive is truly one of its kind organization. Just as you said, we are an NGO. We are allowed to buy weapons. I often say that I wish I didn't have that need to do those things, but we just cannot see it and close our eyes and do nothing. That's why the civil society in Ukraine is super, super active. Our mission at Come Back Alive is to support the Ukrainian defenders, first responders, veterans, Ukrainian army, the defense forces in general, work with the Ukrainian government and the foreign governments, and help all of the stakeholders get the smart things done faster, because the speed is super critical in wartime. This is military podcast, so you probably talked a lot about that, but it's often relevant to remember that speed matters a lot. So fortunately, we are growing, and we are growing fast, and the growth is stable. Unfortunately, the world still needs organizations like ours. So the job is to convert the private donations that we receive into the military projects in the area of air defense, unmanned systems, sniping, artillery, tactical medicine, you name it, underwater operations, demining. And we also put a lot of stress into the military trainings and officers' education right now. That is the biggest focus for us this year. The amount of donations that we have collected so far is 420 million euro. That's incredibly a lot compared to any other NGO in Ukraine. And people often ask me where donations come from. So normally we receive most of the donations from inside of Ukraine. That's like 85 to 90% coming from Ukraine, and about 10 to 15% coming from outside of Ukraine. And this proportion has been more or less the same within the last 3 years. However, what has changed is the distribution of the foreign donations between the countries. So, for example, here you can see that donations coming from Nordic countries in 2025 has increased insanely. Most of this growth, and to be more specific, it's 5 million euro. If you can imagine that 5 million euro coming from one partner, and that is the Norwegian organization called Fritt Ukraina. The job that they are doing is just fantastic. And we started the partnership with them in December last year, and that was specifically about the Dronefall project. So they donated 800,000 euro. Come Back Alive has matched the donation, and this joint initiative has pushed the Dronefall project back in December. So before they joined, it was about, Taras may correct me, but it was about 16 units, military units in the Dronefall project. But when Come Back Alive and Fritt Ukraina pushed it, we were able to supply about 36 military units. So that was like twice more, which is fantastic. And what is more interesting is that last month, Fritt Ukraina has again contributed to Dronefall. They contributed 1 million euro. And they contributed again 1 million euro to Dronefall 2.0. If I were to talk about the difference between Dronefall and Dronefall 2.0, it's like Dronefall 1 is intercepting the drones on the front lines, and Dronefall 2 is using the same tactics and intercepting the Russian reconnaissance drones, but on what I would call the civil part of Ukraine. For example, Kyiv region, to protect the critical infrastructure and the air defense systems. So it's like building the second layer of the air defense here. What is interesting is that Come Back Alive and Freed Ukraine, we will soon visit one of the units that is very active in the, well, it actually Come Back Alive, Freed Ukraine, yes, and Taras, who is here, will visit the units to see how the project is working, how it's developing, and moreover, what else can we do for them to develop it further and to provide the support to the units on the ground in general. Okay, going further with what's happening in Come Back Alive. I was once speaking with the European delegation in our office, and I showed them, look how much the government of Ukraine is doing to run the military operations and how small is Come Back Alive. Although we are the largest NGO, we are still too small compared to government. If you can see this small purple dot on the graph here. And then the other person in the room said, well, okay, you are small, but then my country is not even on the map here. And I was like, really, if you open the Kyiv Institute report, you can see that the single NGO in Ukraine is doing more in terms of military aid than some of, well, many European countries, actually. So that is the role for Come Back Alive, to be a strategic partner of the Ukrainian government and the Ukrainian defense forces to further strengthen our capabilities and deter Russian aggression in Ukraine and also in Europe. I could speak more about all of the other projects we are running, but that would probably take us nights and days, if not the weeks. I really, really love what we are doing in terms of Dronefall and how that has changed the situation on the front line. And Taras is the best person to talk about that.
Thank you so much, Kate. One thing I want to ask you is Come Back Alive. Yeah, you said, and it shows here on the graph that it's a small compared to government contributions. But my feeling, at least, both by observation and also in visiting Ukraine, is that foundations like Come Back Alive and also many others have a special ability to help the military and the people in a different way, and also can react a lot faster than governmental structures can. And so the impact may be amplified by that. And I wonder if maybe there would be some interest from governments that understands this to fund the organization because of the effectiveness. Have you gotten any interest from any governments? And if you can talk about it, of course, or is it just private individuals and other charities that are contacting you?
That's a very good point, Erlend, and I'm glad you asked. Indeed, we talk to governments, of course, and they see great value in what we are doing. And sometimes I even start the presentation saying them that I'm going to present you what we are doing. You're going to be impressed because all of them are impressed, but you will not know what to do with that information. The problem is they are willing to do this. However, they don't have the legal mechanisms to do this. So we will see how that develops. We definitely have the interest of some of the countries countries and governments to work with us. Hopefully that will be successful, and when it's public, you will know about that.
Okay, interesting that something is happening there. I think it would be, a very effective means of giving aid to Ukraine, especially for maybe smaller countries that doesn't have a big military industry, because giving money either to the government of Ukraine or also to Come Back Alive, I think would be very, very, very useful for the typical aid donations that we see right now. May be very long and cumbersome or bureaucratic and operations compared to what you do. And I wonder, like, why is it that Come Back Alive and institutions like yours can be so much more effective?
That's another good question. It's always that the governments are slower because they have to follow tons of procedures, and they have to follow them. The governments cannot be chaotic, so I understand them. But ourselves, as we are an independent organization, we can navigate really fast. We know the need on the ground because we visit the units every week, if not like every second day. And then we also talk to the Ministry of Defense here in Kyiv. So we have like 360 overview on the problem, and then we have independent and private incomes, if I can say incomes in terms of donations, and we can operate those funds super fast. So if we have the request from the unit today, we can most likely start the procurement tomorrow. The government will not be able to do this. They have to get all the signs, all the agreements, and all of that before they pass all the requests and this list to the other agency that is doing the procurement. Then they have to start the procurement, another ton of procedures until it's finally delivered. We can make it faster. The main reason is the funding that we get. We do report in terms in front of the donors, but we are free to choose how we distribute the funds and how fast we make the decisions.
Yeah, I understand. Do you have any biggest, like, do you have any feelings of challenges that you faced that were the most difficult ones in your work in the charity? And how do you tend to approach problems and solve them? Because I feel like you have you have a special approach, and you seem to be able to solve problems which other don't for some reason.
Yeah. So we have the team that's working with the Ukrainian donors, and I work with international donors. Here, your audience is a little bit different as they are interested in the topic, but pretty often I would talk to people that know very little about what's happening. So if in Ukraine, you can talk to donor and say, like, we are buying product ABC and specifications are like X, Y, that. Then when I go to other countries, I don't start with the product list, but I start with educating the donors about what is war and what is happening. So that's like the longest cycle. Someone didn't expect this when I joined the organization. Of course, it was obvious, but I really want to move things faster. And sometimes it's hard because I know I have to make one step back and explain the war itself. But that's a relatively nice part of this, because I mean, people are interested and they are willing to learn about that. They are willing to contribute. They just need to get the information from somewhere. And if that somewhere can be myself, then why not? What really breaks my heart is working with the banks. I'm talking now more about the donor side, right? Because that's what I do every day. But when you have the donors who are willing to contribute and donate, pretty often the banks would either block the transactions because they have no idea what Come Back Alive is doing and why we buy drones or machine guns. Apparently, we need that to defend ourselves. If not that, my family might have been killed. already. And you have to explain this to banks, super bureaucratic structures and institutions. And that happens every day, probably. There is no single business day for me, not to talk about the other bank having issue processing the transaction. That's been hard. And probably the third challenge is what we already discussed. Speaking with the governments to see them as their partner, but again, they already understand that. They've seen our progress within the last 3 years. They've seen our approaches, that not only we are effective, but that also we take the feedback from the units after we deliver some material support to them. And this component, taking the feedback from the units and processing that and making the next iterations better, this approach is really appealing to them.
Yeah. So I got some questions before the stream from some of the people that we talked to, and some of them were about veterans. And I know that Come Back Alive also works with veterans, and I think it is, a coming problem that most people don't necessarily focus so much on, but it's a very large challenge. And you noted that there's more than 1 million veterans already, and there will be a lot more. Have you been involved with anything that has to do with veterans, and what is Come Back Alive doing there, and how can you help veterans when you're fighting a war? It seems very challenging.
Yeah, that's a very important part of our lives right now. Before this full-scale invasion, so before February 22, Come Back Alive also had different directions or areas of our work, and about 80% of our operations were about working with veterans and providing the military analytics, and only about 20% were about providing the material support to the units on the ground. With the full-scale invasion, it has switched. So nowadays, it's 80% doing the work with the units, providing drones, technical equipment, training, whatsoever. And about 20% now is working with veterans and the analytical studies. With the veterans, although nowadays it's smaller part of our activities or projects, it's still incredibly important, because you cannot build a strong army, or you cannot conscript or mobilize more people if they don't have a feeling that after their service they will be valued. So it's super, super critical to both for individuals, right, that come back to their civil lives and their families. It is important for them to get this rehabilitation in some way, but it's also super important for the country itself, for our survival. What do? We took our niche in the adaptive sports and sports rehabilitation for the wounded veterans specifically. There are not too many organizations doing that in Ukraine, and that is very cool that other teams can concentrate on mental health or help the veterans get new professions. That's something we are not involved in, because other people are doing this. We are doing sports rehabilitation specifically, and that is very, I wanted to say nice, although it's for wounded veterans, so pretty often it's somewhat emotionally hard. But you see how they are doing some sports, let's say wheelchair basketball, and they are playing it, and they are getting extremely positive emotions about this game. And through the game, they adapt to their new bodies. They find new friends. they have some of the achievements in sport, and then they replicate that in real civil life. So this niche is, I don't think it's underestimated, but it was not developed in Ukraine before, and now we are developing this. Of course, it is a challenge to have 1.5 million veterans, and yes, we will have many more. But probably the infrastructure will be the biggest difficulty, because we didn't have it before 2022. In terms of the mental health and socialization, it's going to be difficult as well, because it's difficult in any country. But the support for the armed forces in Ukraine right now is extremely high. And I mean civilians, just like myself and my friends, we value everyone who is in the service right now. So I will definitely put a lot of efforts to help those people that are protecting us right now, to help them get back to civil lives.
Yeah, I think veterans as a resource as well has not been appreciated well enough in my country, and probably Europe has a different approach to veterans than we've seen in the US, where veterans are very highly valued in society. And I think at least we in Europe need to learn a bit from the status as well, and appreciating veterans. I guess in Ukraine right now, it's completely different from what it was, let's say, 10 years ago.
You're right.
Yeah. You talked a little bit about military support from the governments, and is it going better now, or is it what is your feeling?
Better is an interesting question. It's different nowadays. It sounds obvious to me, but I'll share that anyways. Previously, the countries were donating mainly what they had in stock. Many countries have almost nothing left in their stocks, so they now choose to donate financially and support the Ukrainian defense industry. And that is a very good shift. They have to learn how to do this effectively and fast. And that also takes time. Unfortunately, it's somewhat slow, but this shift is, I would say, it's very, very positive, because then when many things are developed, sort of produced in Ukraine, then they can be faster supplied and shipped to the front line. So from one side, it's slovelier because they have to learn how to do this. On the other side, it will be, and it's already somewhat faster in terms of specific products. But the overall, I would say, you never know how much you need, right? Again, war is extremely expensive. But my feeling is that if we spend more at the beginning, and if we spend more right now, then this is still going to be cheaper than running war in the long term or rebuilding a lot of cities and towns in Ukraine. But what is most important is to actually make Russia not be able to start another invasion in the next at least a couple of decades. I'm not talking forever because it's not possible, but at least 50 years.
So the goal is to stop them for 50 years. I hope that forever is the the result, because this is something we should have not needed, but having people like you and also all the volunteers in different organizations doing what you're doing is something I'm at least very personally grateful for.
Thank you, Erlend. I will dare to comment here. I also want this to stop for forever, but I've learned Ukrainian history. And it's this invasion, and the one started in 2014 is not the first one. unfortunately, I don't have illusions that this will repeat at some point, maybe even when I'm alive, or I don't know when. But really, the goal is at least to stop them for as long as it's possible. But let's dream about more, of course.
Yeah. Well, I think maybe we're gonna start transitioning towards the drone interception project that you have created. I think it's incredibly fascinating to see this kind of development happening. But do you have any other fields where you've been involved, where you're surprised or impressed about how fast things have developed, especially on the technological front?
I had the answer, but then you added about the technological side.
You can
Yeah,
say anything. It doesn't need to be about technology.
I'll share the other examples. The first is we see the picture right now. It's the snipers in the sniper school. We started this direction before the full-scale invasion. And we also developed our rifles together with the Ukrainian and Canadian manufacturers. So there's a sniper's rifle called CBA, that stands for Come Back Alive. Again, I don't think other NGOs has done something like that. And what I like about this is not only we are developing new things, and these ones are for long range shooting over 2,000 meters, which is 2,000 meters is like 25-30% more than what the snipers had before they got our rifles, basically. And on top of that, we also train the snipers. Although sniping is not the most popular thing in the army right now, everyone is talking about drones, right? But I think we now have the precedent of an NGO providing an A-class training, that this also helped us replicate that program to other areas. And now I'm talking about UAVs, UGVs, and other areas. So we just proved that we can train the military personnel and we can do faster than the government. And now government of Ukraine comes to us and asks for our help to create more programs. And if to speak about the innovations, I would rather, we don't have our R&D office, right? But I would say that government and foreign governments, they would normally want to buy the tested products and the products with a proven efficiency and effectiveness. And governments would buy them on a large scale. When Come Back Alive takes the niche, when we do not develop products ourselves, but we help new products scale to the, what we call in business like MVP, if you know what, minimum viable product. We help the manufacturers and units get to the point when their efficiency and effectiveness is high enough that the governments can then buy the products and help them overpass one of the stages, if that makes sense.
Interesting. And a follow-up from me, at least, then, is I think there's a lot that we should learn in the West about how to organize the civil society around the military in a crisis like Ukraine has. And I wonder if there has been any interest from foreign either organizations or governments to learn about what you're doing and how effective it is, because this is something that is completely new for many governments, and yeah, I think it's very interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. They learn a lot, and we meet a lot of institutions, foreign institutions, about the role of, yes, Come Back Alive as civil society organizations. What are the difficulties or the benefits? I cannot say that one of the countries can simply take our experience, right, and do exactly the same in their country. It always has to be adapted. But we do share a lot, and they are interested. Again, I work a lot with the Nordic countries, so I know for sure we talk to them about that. We work a lot with the Eastern European countries like Poland, Czech Republic, Germany to some extent. So we share that. We have unique experience of evacuation on the water, and we have good studies on that. So we also share that with our partners. So this is something you will not find on the website, or not always will find on the website, but we exchange a lot of learnings from this world that might be applicable to other countries. Hopefully you don't need them, but yes, we do share that.
Yeah, I mean, we always hope that we won't need to face anything similar to what Ukraine is right now. But you know, being prepared for the worst is something we should always think about and have back in the back of our minds. And it's unfortunately why we are in this situation right now as well, I think, because of unpreparedness in Europe.
We are all in the same boat now, so we have to learn together and work on this together.
Okay. I think we've also been joined by Federico Borsari, who's also an analyst working with UAS. Hi, Federico. And we also have our in-house analyst Artem, who's been doing a lot of tracing of some of the drones that have been funded and developed by your team. So welcome, guys.
Hello, everyone. It's nice to be here.
So, Dronefall, Taras, what is it and how did it come to exist?
Yeah. So the project itself, started last summer, and the idea belongs to the idea of the project itself. It belongs to Taras Chmut. Basically, he was the one to launch it, and I was the one invited to manage it on the military side. So basically what I'm doing, I'm the one spending money if to be, really rough in saying, for helping Ukrainian troops, Ukrainian units that are doing the interception job. So we started in, I think, August 2024 with 2 or 3 units, and then we've been moving along and then joining more and more. But the first units that were in the project were Marines, I think, and those who've been near Kherson region. And that the whole experience that we placed in the project was collected from a couple other units, but we basically, what we intended to do is was to provide the infrastructure for the groups of interceptors that already have some developments or some success in this field. And we've been providing them with the drones, with the transportation, with any other kind of equipment. But what makes this project special, we didn't do, let's say, we didn't buy everything that we thought would be appropriate. Instead of this, we've been asking the military what kind of drones you've been using before, what kind are you used to, and what kind do you think would be better to to buy or to get, because in the beginning of the project was huge deal of buying the exact components for the FPV drones, for the interceptors, and it wasn't always easy to get whatever a military was asking. But then, so then we kind of, I think, developed to 10 units in the project, and we got maybe 100 interceptions. The first 100 was reached sometime in October or November, I think October. And that was amazing. We've been very happy about it because it all worked out. But our aim was to reach 1,000 of interceptions, and there was a long way to go. So we started to attract more donations. We started to attract more military that know how to work with the interception. And sometimes we didn't just supply them with the equipment, but also we've been trying to teach them or to share the experience between the units. And that would also made this project very special, as we became the mediator between the military. That might sound funny, but it actually how it was and how it is. So we are the kind of centralized, we are the really often the group of people who collect the experience from different groups and units and then share it with others. And sometimes if there is a problem on the front line with the interceptions, if there is some issues with the, I don't know, some units face the issue with the radio modules set up, or with the issues of switching to another frequency in radio control modules, or anything else. We might be the one to help them, as we know people who know how to do it. So this is how it worked, and until we reached the point of 1,000, and that was, I think, in the beginning of April. I'm sorry, not April. I think March. Beginning of March, we reached the point of 1,000, and we accelerated the numbers of interceptions rapidly. As I said, within the first 2 months, we reached the 100 interceptions, and then within next, 1, 2, 3, 4 months, we reached another 900. So it was quite impressive thing, and we've been expanding the project due to and thankfully to the donators, thankfully to the new units that have been joining and been really responsible and very active in learning on how to intercept, or they already had some experience themselves, so we've been just picking up their practice and moving on. As of today, we have 1,500 interceptions. I'm not sure it's already on the website. On the website, we might have a little less number, but still it's somewhere around it. And it's a huge team of people who works on this project. It's not just me or Kate or, I don't know, the person who buys the purchases, anything like drones or anything else. It's a huge number of people who do let's say, the logistics of anything we buy. The people who do the procurements, people who attract donations, and that's not only Katya or anyone else, but it's a huge team. I'd say minimum 10 or 12 people attached to this. So this is how it looks, and I would be, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have about this, because there are lots of technical interesting stuff that might be interesting for you. So why not just talk about whatever you would like to ask?
Yeah, thank you, Taras. I just wanted to emphasize the problem, right? The problem is that interceptors are very hard to come by and very expensive, and the Russians are unfortunately able to continue to send in surveillance drones and also one-way attack drones that are a big challenge for the Ukrainian military. So that's kind of the background for what the problem is, and you've found a innovative, cheap, and also fast solution to mitigate this problem, right? I'm personally very, very impressed. A lot of people said that these kind of things was not going to be possible, that you have to rely on oh, we lost okay.
You didn't
Sorry.
lose me. Sorry, I was deactivating myself for a better picture.
Okay, I was a little bit confused. Anyways,
No worries.
thank you. Okay, so yeah, you found a very interesting solution to this problem that a lot of people said wasn't possible, and I'm personally very impressed. And I'm going to give the word to Artem, that I think has a lot of questions. He's been writing some very interesting articles and doing very, very tedious work to document this, which I think has a great value. So thank you, Artem, for the work you're doing for us and for Andrew. Do you have some questions for Taras?
Yes, of course. Hello, everybody. I will shortly introduce myself. I'm Artem, and I'm following public sources that post or somehow tell about the FPV interceptors and how the progress is going. And obviously, Dronefall project was a pioneer project in this sphere, and now we have more than 3 major projects that are working in this area. But I believe that Dronefall, as a first project, was facing the issues that other projects didn't. And my first question to Taras, and maybe Kate knows about administrative changes, how did you secure the people inside the units so that they will not be redistributed to other tasks or to infantry or transferred to other areas of work in the army, but they stay and every day work on the Dronefall and interceptions? Was it hard?
I can, yeah, there are 2 answers to this question. The first one is that some units, some brigades came to the point evolutionary, where in an evolutionary way. What I mean that they would sometimes they would send those pilots to work against the infantry, the op-4 infantry, and that would continue for a long time until they understood that the importance of the interceptions, of the op-4 surveillance, and the effects that it has on their covering their on land troops. That's the first one, as we actually had the experience working with some of the brigades that we've been supplying with the drones, with the expertise. We've been advising them on how to work, but we've been working with small groups of people who've been doing interceptions, not on the command level of the whole brigade, and that meant that the commander might have sent the group, as I said, to work against the infantry at any time. But later, these brigades, they understood that they have to separate the FPV pilots that are the groups of FPV pilots. So that they would have the group that is doing the aircraft interceptions, and another group, and that would be their initial task, and they would not be disturbed for any other tasks. And another group would be working against the infantry. So that came up evolutionary. Another answer is that we would pick the units that originally are assigned to work against the aircraft, such as anti-aircraft regiments. These were the most, at least 2 or 3 anti-aircraft regiments in Ukraine were really successful in the beginning of this project, and still are. And then, but at this point, like lots of units and lots of anti-aircraft regiments have reached the level of pretty serious level of interceptions by either FPV drones or FPV planes. So we've been either picking the units that have been assigned for such tasks, or we've been providing aid to anyone. But then, and we faced such issues, but then the issues became resolved after the whole, I would say, Ukrainian armed forces command on the top or the highest levels understood the importance of this field of work. So now it's not the issue at all, I would say.
Okay, and I imagine that there was some counter work and their resistance. Was it hard for army to evolve, or was it met with understanding and appreciation?
Well, you pretty much know the answer to this question.
Uh-huh.
And it's, of course, it wasn't easy. Of course, it's anything that is new in such conservative structure or group as a military is met really like with a strict opposition to anything new, and without any trust to anything new. This is the way the military works. This is the way the conservative groups work, and that's why you have to provide the evidence of effectiveness first, and then you would be taken seriously in your unit, because the commander would not easily accept you doing something not really understandable or something that is not really usual or assigned directly to you. So most in most cases, I'd say the units or the pilots that've been developing this field, they've been facing lots of difficulties. But now it is it is quite all those people who've been starting this whole movement, they're now some kind of stars in their field or in their units as those who started it and developed and scaled it up to the next level, as lots of units have developed the interception groups within the unit, from tiny group of 2 people to sometimes the whole, maybe the battery or the platoon at least, or even the regiment. I know some of the cases where it now works on the regiment level, so we are kind of having the regiment interceptors, the whole units that are assigned to do interceptions, and they would include hundreds of people, and that would be the official, by official order of the commander-in-chief of the Ukrainian armed forces. Something like that. Did I answer your question?
Yes, fully. Thank you for the insight into the structure and functioning of the armed forces. And the next question, I have to make a remark before asking it. As of now, we saw 3,370 interceptions, unique interceptions that were published in open sources. And there were about 30 different models of drones, and 25 of those models were Russian drones, and they were very different of size, purpose, and altitudes, very different drones. And if we talk about friendly fire in interceptions, it is merely a little fraction of the percent, and we could see up to 10 instances of friendly fire. But as drones are developing and we have more and more new, unknown, not very popular models, do you plan somehow to launch an education program or a booklet or a manual guide for armed forces to use it and to reduce friendly fire to a minimum?
Yeah, the friendly fire is an issue, and it still is an issue, especially when more and more new units start developing the interception groups within them, and so they are engaging new people, new pilots who has never been in anti-aircraft, and they have no idea how the surveillance, Ukrainian surveillance drones or Russian look like. And you're totally correct. The education needs to be the education platform or course or the booklet or anything should be developed and kind of enforced, like taking place, introduced. But I've seen the booklet already, and as for the courses or any education pieces, this is the thing that me myself I'm trying to help develop here and there the education components in some of the training centers, and as well as I'm trying to support or find the way to support the educational initiatives within separate units. Not only for the reduction of the number of friendly fire, but also to teach how to pilot, to teach the tactics of the interception, to train people how to operate the drone, how to get to the target until you or how to aim the target, or how to approach the target, or how to get to the target using the data from radars or radio radio surveillance, radio detection. So we have lots of things to do in the future. This is huge field that needs to be still worked on, and I'm happy that I'm part of it, but I'm really happy that there are more and more people in this field that are really interested in and share my kind of intentions. And so I have lots of friends, I'd say, right now to engage and to work on good and great and further extraordinary ideas to move this field forward. But not only us, other funds also they're doing really great job on supporting this this field of interceptions.
Thank you. Next questions will be very specific and technical, so probably some classified information will be involved, or it will be just nonsense. So please let me know, let us know if they make any sense. And I wanted to ask if Come Back Alive and Dronefall project working actively with the area of automation of interception, or if it is on the side of the manufacturer units and probably some R&D centers inside army, or is it on your side? Do you work actively on the automated launch, automated landing of the drone, maybe automated explosion, things like that?
Yeah, I think I got your question. Well, last week I've been to one of the gatherings, the Brave One. If you know this initiative, it's the state-supported initiative on innovation in low tech, let's say, where the platform where the military and startups can, or not only just startups, but the military producers can talk or share their opinions or experiences. I've been asked the question, what do I think about the automation, and why do I think military people do not like using automation at this point? Because as you might know, there are some of the elements of the automation that already exist. For example, the automation where when you can get to the point or to the target and you actually see it. So you get to the visual contact with the target, and then actually the AI would help you or lead you to guide you to the target, and then home in would help you kind of to automate the explosion. But lots of people in the military groups, in the units, they do not like using it, and there is an easy explanation for it. As first of all, this element that I mentioned, it exists, but it doesn't solve the problem in the air. So it is more adjusted for the on-land targets rather than aircraft targets. And the second is that for the aircraft targets, you would have to have really long way of automation, not just this part, but also it should include it would better to include the automatic detection of the target in the air, automatic launch, maybe automatic guidance until the visual contact, as it is quite separate from another part when it is automatically guided and homed in on the target. And then automatic automatic home in, explosion, the detonation. So there are lots of parts of automation that needs to be done until you have the complete product that you can use as and we can call it the drone missile. And when we have this product complete, then we might discuss either, then it would be strange for the military not to use it. But at this point, there is some of the elements that exist, but it is easier for pilots, as they are quite experienced in interceptions, to do it all manually. So, for example, from the start, from takeoff until you have to understand, this is the most difficult part of interception, is to take off and then to get to the target when you can actually see it on camera of the drone. This is the toughest part. But even though it is the toughest part, the experienced operators still do it themselves rather than use the automation. Why? Because the automation still needs lots of setup. It needs to be calibrated. You would need lots of additional devices to make this automation work. So it's quite a complicated process. And at this point, when you have on this stage of interception, it is not that much demanded. But at the point where we would have the complete automation, the complex of automations, as I was mentioning, then it might make sense to use it. At this point, there is not such thing, especially if we are talking about surveillance drones, as they are not that fast, and you can take off and then you would have some time to find it in the air yourself, manually, by hand. If we would be talking about Shaheeds, that's another type of story. That's where we might need this automation of getting to the target automatically. to see it at least, because it's a bit different, specific of work.
Yeah, we can see that from the technical specifications of the different drones, and that video that was published by the Come Back Alive on the 3rd of May, when they interviewed the 47th Brigade FPV interception operators. The operators, they mentioned that surveillance drones, they can sometimes slow down even to 60 kilometers per hour, which is relatively low speed in the air. And I suppose that allows operators to have a time frame to prepare, launch, and attack. And in that video, also, there were a lot of people, a lot of equipment in the tree line, along with the operators and the film crew. There were a lot of people there who were operating one FPV interception station. Do you have ideas, or do you have plans to maybe somehow dehumanize the FPV interception stations, where you can place the aerostat balloon or I don't know, box in the forest that will hold all the necessary equipment and will be remotely controlled from the command center?
Well, that's kind of coming back to the previous question and my answer. If you have the complete automation of the processes, you might talk about these ways of doing interceptions, like reducing number of people who are who are operating the whole interception process. But at first, you would have to have, again, the automatic detection, automatic start, launch of the drone, automatic guidance until the visual contact with the target, and then automatic guidance until you home in, until you reach the target, and automatically blow up the drone. Right? So these are the stages that we still need to work on. And this is only the part of the problem. I had the discussion with some people in the Ministry of Defense about the ideas of automation or reducing number of people operating the interception. And it's excuse me. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I got my AirPods turned off. So we had this discussion, and then they've been offering the project where you have the magic box, where the drones are piled up, and this box magically opens whenever the surveillance drones or any kind of opposite forces aircraft enters our airspace. But there is no technical solution for this, actually. And then you will still need people overseeing this box. You will still need people protecting or guarding this box. Due to the, this is not just something that I'm making up. This is the protocol of the Ukrainian armed forces, that any military object needs to be protected and guarded. especially if it contains any explosives. So you will have at least 2 people guarding this magic box. So then you will have other people coming up, checking up whether this box is still, whether everything is okay with the drone's communications, the controlling the video channel, whether the internet connection to the box is okay and right. And you would have pretty much the people who would come and refill the generators that would provide the energy for this box. You know, lots of different people. This doesn't make a number of people that are connected to the interception process less, even though it is not possible at this moment technically. But even if we think it is, let's say it is, we would still have lots of people be connected to this magic box that provides interception itself. So yeah, this is how it works. It's not going to be automated anytime soon. You would have to, you know, think really carefully to come to the point where we have automatic anti-aircraft or defense system in Ukraine. There are lots of things to think about, and it's not going to be done in 1 year, especially if somehow it is connected to bureaucracy or bureaucratic moments. This is the toughest things. Because technical things seems to be more possible than changes in bureaucracies.
Yes. Thank you for explaining these maybe details of the everyday work and everyday communication and how it is in reality. Because me and a lot of people on the internet, they tend to dream big about the interstellar travels and about things that are not really implementable right here and now, and about things that require a lot of effort. And thank you for working on it step by step, and thank you for managing the project. And from the public sources, we can see that pretty much all of the front line is now protected and covered by the units and those regiments. I will not dare to name the numbers of the regiments, but we can see that they have huge areas of responsibility, and they show the videos from every little corner of that area. And it is, I want to state that we are glad and we are thankful for the management of the armed forces and of the charities that are working in that project, that this is not an issue, as we can see, and that frontline is properly covered right now. And as Erlend opened the map, there is one very, very specific small question about the West Robotyne area. The videos from there were published with credits to 128th Mountain Assault Brigade. And they did incredible job countering the Molnia drones in that area. We could see about 20 interceptions in very short time span. Do you have any interesting details about that?
Yeah, sure. So, like a little comment on what you said before. We still need more units or more groups of interceptions, as we are still not covered completely. We more and more people, and there is a deficit of people in piloting of the interceptors, because the plan is to expand this field even more. The second thing is about the Molnia. About Molnia, I'd say some of the units, including 128 Brigade, they are choosing the path of targeting the drones, the attack drones that are flying lower than surveillance drones. So they are their primary targets that they pick or search for. They select those that are lower than, I'd say, 1,000 meters. And they are trying to aim them primarily as they are bringing threats to their artillery or their troops on land or any strategic objects nearby their territory or the zone of responsibility. So this is how it works. Some of the units, they are choosing to aim primarily Molnias, while others are looking for surveillance drones. That's why you would have such statistics about 128th Brigade. And this is just a political decision made by the commander of anti-aircraft unit or the brigade itself.
Very interesting. Thank you. Okay, and I have two more questions, but as one of those questions is more, I'd say, political, I will squeeze two questions into one. And if you if you don't have permission to answer to the first one, maybe you will hint us with your answer to the second. So, will Come Back Alive launch the project for countering Shaheds and long-range strike drones? Because we already saw public mentioning of the work that is being done by 412th Battalion Nemesis. The article about them was published on Military, and they state that they intercepted quite a lot of Shaheds in several months time span. So will Come Back Alive do it? Or if you cannot answer that, maybe you have some ideas to re-educate, retrain the mobile fire squads groups that are working with machine guns, and maybe introduce them to FPV interceptions and that technology.
Ooh, that would take a lot of effort and time, because there are lots of these mobile groups. Most of them, they do not, they are not trained to use FPV drones at all, and you would have to start from the very beginning. So it would be the toughy one, I think. But they are doing their job even as a mobile group, and I think they do have their effect on anti-aircraft defense as well. but that's kind of the side question of it. But speaking about the Shahid story, I can say at this point, I can say that Come Back Alive already is doing something to support the anti-Shahid movements. But we cannot talk a lot about it at this point. And I hope when it's public, everybody will know it. But yeah, we have some of the developments going on.
Thank you. And I ran out of questions, and I really thankful for the answers and for the conversation.
Thank you for your all of your questions, by the way, Artem. And I need to thank you again. I did it once at Militarny interview, but I'll do it here as well. Thank you for your effort and your research and your analytics on this important issue, at least important to myself. You did a great job, and I know how it is hard to collect and especially to analyze all the data that you collected and analyzed. It's really impressive. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to reiterate that for the people that watch on YouTube, you will be able to see the map. You can also find this map in Artem's article, which is published both at Militarny in Ukrainian and at Tochnyi.info in English. I know Federico has maybe one or two questions as well, if you have time, Taras.
Sure, why not? Would be glad to.
Federico, are you with us?
Yes, I'm here. Thanks so much for the great discussion. I will introduce myself very briefly, as Artem did as well. My name is Federico Borsari. I am a defense analyst that works at CIPA at the moment in Washington, D.C. The CIPA stands for Center for European Policy Analysis. And I've been focusing a lot on, of course, unmanned systems and counter-US as well, especially in Ukraine. And I want really say thank you to Taras and to Kate for their effort to help the Ukrainian military to be effective on the battlefield and to fight against Russian drones especially. My questions are two different touches upon two different things. The first is I was curious to ask Taras if he can elaborate a bit on how long does it take for to train a proficient FPV pilot, especially for this specific role of intercepting Russian ISR drones and other systems. So yeah, I will start with this question and then I have a second one later. Thanks.
Thank you. This is a great question. I'd say, from my experience, what I've seen in the military, it would take you, like, official course would take 30 days plus 2 more weeks for the pilots who already learned and are trained to use FPV drones. 2 more weeks to for additional training on the interceptions. But it is way more complicated than takes 45 days, right? 1 month plus 2 more weeks, 45 days. But the thing is that if you have skills already on how to operate the just regular FPV drone, it would be easier, of course, for you to switch to interception, but it wouldn't be easy, as you will have to navigate in 3-dimension coordinates not just in 2 dimensions. As in this case, the altitude would be crucial parameter in your search for targets. And this is something different that regular FPV pilots would experience. And there are lots of other things like the navigation system operators. You'll have to train them as well. You'll have to get them together and working and coordinating their efforts and actions to make the interception successful. You will have one of the most, I would say, the most important person in this field, in this team, in this squad, right, of interception, is the technician that prepares the drone for the takeoff. This is the most important person, not the pilot. Why? Because the person that prepares drone for the takeoff sets up the radio channels, the controlling radio channel, the video channel, sets up also knows what are the parameters of the antennas, of the receivers, transmitters, you name it. It's a complicated kind of complicated technology, not that complicated, but still. But you have to take into account the radio horizon, what we call, as the drones that work perfectly in one region of the front line, one part of the front line would not work at all at the another part of the front line due to the jamming or the intensity of the radio frequencies in the air of other pilots. So you have to take into account huge amount of information about the situation of the radio frequencies that are used in your region, in your sector. So this is, and this person is not easy to train. You cannot just introduce to this technician, train him or her in 30 or 40 days. It would take lots of effort, lots of tries, lots of mistakes to understand how it all works and how it should work better. So this is, this is not the answer to your question, but I'd say this is really complicated thing to deal with. And it's not just about days, how many days you spend training. It's about where you then work on interceptions, with whom you're working with interceptions, and what kind of equipment is available to you, because sometimes you do not have enough of what you would like to have, and lots of different parameters that you would have to take into account. Sorry if I'm making this too difficult.
No, I mean, thanks so much for that. Actually, I think that was a great answer, because oftentimes we from distance, from outside Ukraine, we tend to, of course, perceive this work in terms of interceptions, for instance, as something that is very immediate, very easy, but actually behind it there's so much work. And as you said, it's always teamwork that requires a lot of coordination, first, among the team members, the operators, the pilots, the technician, as you mentioned. That was a great insight. And at the same time, there are also contextual factors, right? Electronic warfare may be different, between different areas of the front line, and so that was really, really interesting. Thanks so much for that, for that answer. The second question I have is about Russians, and how is Russia adapting to the Ukrainian great great achievements in terms of their capability to intercept the ISR drones. So what are you seeing the Russians are doing? We have heard about rear looking cameras installed on ISR drones, and other methods to kind of avoid FPV interceptors, but I was curious if you have more info on how the Russian are reacting, and also if they are reorganizing their I would say force structure in terms of maybe I would say reassessing their force design, so introducing new units in specialized in using ISR drones. What are you seeing based on your experience? Thanks.
Thank you. Another good question, but I would add to the previous one, maybe answering this one. So a couple months ago, one of the Norwegian friends who've been coming to Ukraine with the group of Fleet Ukraine asked me the question: would Ukraine mind, or Ukrainian businesses or the producers of the FPV drones, would they mind exporting the FPV drones that are used for the interceptions to Norway, for example, or to Europe, or to elsewhere? And my answer was that they would be happy to do it. They would be extremely happy to do it. But the thing is that you would not have any use of it, as it is not about the FPV drones that you export or buy somewhere. It is about the current situation on the front line and the technology that works in the exact moment of time. The thing is with the FPV drones that the technology of FPV is changing really rapidly, as well as the counter technologies or counter actions are developing really, really quickly. And that means that it is not the FPV equipment or the drone is not that much of a value. Rather, the person who knows how to put up together the FPV drone really quickly and put it the way that the FPV drone would take off and would reach the target, and would reach the target successfully, and would know what radio modules to use, how to set up the drone. All the experience here would mean a huge part and thing, rather than technology or any modules or any propellers or engines or anything else. Because you can, and this is the part of the answer to your second question, as the Russians they move on with the counter actions against our interceptors. Again, they are using jamming, the adaptive jamming. They're using the cameras on the boards, on the planes, and they are on their drones, and they are using any other methods to counter us. But I do not want to evaluate which method works better or worse, not kind of giving them a hint on what to concentrate more. But I would say that we find still solutions to any counteraction, as our pilots are quite creative in this matter, and every time they are facing difficulties in interceptions, they're finding another way of, and switching their tactics to approach the target.
Well,
okay. No, thanks so much. That was absolutely useful. Thanks so much again for the insights, and also thanks to Tochnyi for hosting this great discussion.
Yeah, thank you, Federico. And I wanted to ask if there was any other questions to Taras. We've been going for 2 hours, so I don't want to steal more of your time unnecessarily. I saw that Germinate Ukraine popped up again, so maybe he has a question.
I actually have an off-screen question for Kate.
Okay. Well, one thing I wanted to ask Kate about, and also Taras, is what can people that watch or listen to this do in order to help Come Back Alive? Because you are a charity, of course, and you rely on support.
Well,
absolutely.
that's on the Kate's side, but and I think she'll tell you, answer your questions. But on my side, I'd say keep supporting Ukraine and keep supporting Come Back Alive with whatever you can. That's the best way. We are making history nowadays, and you might become part of this history. So join us.
Taras, after that, it's very little that I can add. First, thanks for asking that. Indeed, there are two things that I would ask about as of right now. The first one is spreading the word. It's extremely important. I know a lot of people here know about Come Back Alive, but not everyone in the world knows. So the more attention we can get, the better results we can provide. And that also comes in terms of working with Russian propaganda. They are extremely successful in spreading their messages. So that's something we also have to work on, and we have to do together. And the more practical thing, donate to Dronefall. I often say that Dronefall is one of my favorite projects, but the problem is that I have too many favorite projects, and Dronefall indeed is one of them. The Come Back Alive is a fantastic organization, and I was always proud that I joined it, but we are just the bridge between our donors and those people who make the history. If not your donations, we would not be able to come up with this initiative and run it for how many months? 8 months now? To make one of the biggest changes in the Russian-Ukrainian war. So use the website. Thank you for opening the website. We see the project list. Dronefall is one of them. Open that page. It offers you a very simple game. You can play the game and then contribute as much as you want.
Yeah, awesome. I think you have also some very interesting design. That you've chosen something that I think appeals to many young people on the internet.
We are lucky to have the many people that want to help us in different ways. Someone with design, somebody financially, and otherwise. So yeah, it's cool.
And when it comes to other projects, is there any specific projects that you're involved with right now, that you're doing any fundraisers for, that you want to highlight?
It's like, it's like choosing who of your children is better, who you love more. We always have multiple projects running at the same time. If I were to pick one, except for Dronefall, that I would donate to the military education. We continuously fundraise for officers' education, and that is something that might give Ukraine a benefit in the mid-term, not the long term, not short term, but mid-term.
Yeah, I understand. Human capital is incredibly important, always, but when things are as difficult and challenging as it is in a big war, human capital is vital. So thank you for the work that you're doing, and I just want to say thank you again to both of you for coming here and dedicating your time, which is incredibly precious, to enlighten our audience. And we will do what we can, at least to spread the word. I know I will. I hope the people at our home will as well. And thank you, Taras, for such an incredible, detailed explanation of the Dronefall project, which I think is incredibly important and astonishing results that you've had.
Thank you for being so patient listeners in this audience, and I hope that I didn't make it too long.
I think most of our audience are very happy that you took your time and explained all these issues, and you definitely did highlight some things that Federico was mentioning well, that we don't see from afar. So you are there on the ground every day, and you see things that we don't even that we cannot imagine. So that's very important that we can talk to you guys. Thank you.
Thank you for doing it.
So do we have anything more, Joseph? If you're still with us.
I am. No, I think that wraps it up, man. It's been a really great broadcast. Thanks so much, of course, to Come Back Alive for joining us this week. Thanks to Artem. Thanks to Federico. Thanks to, of course, you, Erlend, for throwing this whole thing together. Thank you to our audience for listening and tuning in this week and every week. We appreciate it. We'll try to get back to all your great questions next week. Please do, if you could, check out the Come Back Alive website. I want to say the best way to get there for an English speaker is this link I posted in chat here, this savelife.in.ua/en. Is that accurate?
Yep.
Cool. Yep. So check that out if you guys want to see all the work Come Back Alive does. And of course, you can check us out at our website with all the great research at Tochnyi.info. So with that, we will go ahead and wrap things up. We'll see everyone next week, 2100 Kyiv time. Slava Ukraini.
Slava.
On behalf of the brave.